She was the picture of elegance, a rising star in design, and the love of his life, or so he thought. But on the very night she said "I do," a devastating secret unraveled their world, turning a fairy tale wedding into a chilling crime scene. Who pulled the trigger? Was it her new husband, broken by betrayal, her best friend, hiding an obsession, or someone else entirely? Stay with us, because this is one wedding night you'll never forget. This is true Crime's Altar, where every sin is punished, every betrayal has a cost, and every soul must answer to the truth. Like, comment, and subscribe, because these are the stories the guilty prayed would stay buried. Calvin Brooks first laid eyes on Naomi Fields at a fundraising gala for the arts. She was standing near the tall, arched windows, wrapped in a deep wine-colored gown, and the fading sunlight poured through the glass so that a golden shimmer crowned her outline. Calvin, usually restrained in his emotions, felt a sudden tightening in his chest. Later, he would admit to his friends that in that instant he had fallen completely in love. "Who is she?" he murmured to his companion, forcing himself to hide the excitement from his voice. Deshaun Miller, stirring the ice in his drink, followed Calvin's gaze. "That's Naomi Fields, a rising talent in the world of interior design. Brilliant, ambitious, and you can see for yourself she's striking. Want me to introduce you?" Their first date was at a cozy Ethiopian restaurant tucked into a quiet corner of the city. Calvin felt as nervous as a teenager, but Naomi had a way of making even silence feel light and warm. Her almond-shaped brown eyes carried a candor that drew people in, and her low melodic laugh made others turn their heads. "You're not like any banker I've ever met," she teased with a smile, and suddenly it felt like there was something genuine between them. Over the course of their 2-year relationship, they learned much about each other, though not everything. Calvin spoke often about his traditional family in Charleston, the heavy weight of his father's expectations, and his hunger to carve out his own path beyond those shadows. Naomi shared her passion for design, her time abroad, her dream of one day opening her own studio. Yet there were parts of her past she kept locked away. Their wedding became the talk of the city. The old chapel draped in white roses and lilies, crystal chandeliers glistening at the reception, champagne flowing like a dream spun from glass. The bride, dressed in a gown from a celebrated designer, embodied grace itself. "I've never seen you smile this wide," Calvin whispered as they spun slowly across the polished floor in their first dance. Naomi's lips curved, but there was a fleeting darkness behind her eyes. "This is the most important day of my life," she whispered back. "I wish it could last forever." One by one, guests stepped forward with their well wishes. Calvin's parents, refined and poised, embraced Naomi lightly. "Welcome to the family, dear," his mother said with a smile rehearsed to perfection. "You're a Brooks now. Don't forget it." His father clapped him proudly on the shoulder. "Excellent choice, son. A true lady, through and through." Naomi felt Calvin stiffen in her arms. His parents' blessing meant more to him than he would ever admit. As the guests enjoyed their meal, Naomi's closest friend, Tasha Green, pulled her aside into a smaller sitting room off the banquet hall. "You have to tell him," Tasha urged, adjusting the hem of her bridesmaid's dress nervously. "Tonight, Naomi." "Not now," Naomi whispered sharply. "I'll tell him when the moment is right." "When? On your honeymoon? A year into marriage?" Tasha clasped her hands tightly over Naomi's. "I know you're terrified of losing him, but if he truly loves you, he'll understand." Naomi's eyes brimmed with tears. "You don't understand his family, the way he was raised." "What if—" A knock at the door cut her off, and both women pulled apart quickly. "Naomi, the photographer needs you for the group shots," came Deshaun's voice through the wood. "We'll be right out," she called back, dabbing her eyes with a napkin. As the door closed, Tasha squeezed her shoulder. "The longer you wait, the harder it'll be." "And Naomi, watch out for Deshaun." Naomi blinked. "Deshaun? He's Calvin's best friend. And you don't see the way he looks at you? Be careful. He already knows, doesn't he?" Naomi hesitated, then nodded faintly. "He found out by accident, but he promised to keep it between us." All through the night, Deshaun's behavior seemed off. When he raised his glass for a toast, his words stumbled and he avoided Naomi's eyes. During the dances, he drank heavily, And when Calvin drew him into a photo, Deshawn clung stiffly to his friend while keeping a careful distance from the bride. "What's gotten into him?" Calvin whispered to Naomi as they walked away. "Probably nerves," she replied gently. "Not everyone is as smooth as you with a crowd." Later, when the reception was in full swing, Deshawn approached the bar where Naomi stood waiting for champagne. "Beautiful ceremony," he muttered, eyes fixed on his glass. "You look stunning." "Thank you," she answered softly. "Did you tell him?" His voice dropped low. Naomi's smile froze. "Not yet, and it's none of your concern. He's my best friend, Naomi." His voice cracked with guilt. "Keeping something this big from him, it's wrong." "You gave your word," she snapped, her eyes flashing. "I said I would tell him. Tonight." He searched her face, conflicted. "I hope you know what you're doing. Calvin isn't as understanding as you believe." In the presidential suite of the Magnolia Grand Hotel, the new couple finally had a moment alone. Naomi moved slowly toward the vast window that overlooked the glittering city lights, still draped in her wedding gown. Calvin had already shed his jacket and loosened his tie. "I can't believe it," he said softly, stepping behind her and wrapping an arm around her waist. "We're really married now, Mrs. Brooks." Naomi laid her hands gently over his, but her body stayed rigid. "Calvin," she whispered, "we need to talk." He turned her toward him and pressed a kiss to her lips. "About what, love? What could be so urgent tonight of all nights?" Naomi pulled back and drew a long breath. "There's something you need to know about me. Something I should have told you sooner." His brow furrowed. "You're scaring me." "Just let me explain," she pleaded. "And remember, I'm the same Naomi you fell for. Nothing changes that." Calvin lowered himself into a chair, eyes never leaving her face. Naomi began telling him about her childhood, how she had always felt estranged from her own body, how her journey had been one of becoming who she truly was. She spoke carefully, watching his expression slide from confusion to shock, then disbelief. His voice cracked. "You're saying you were born a man?" "I've always been a woman, Calvin," she answered firmly. "I was simply given the wrong body at birth." His throat tightened. "And you haven't completed." Naomi shook her head. "I plan to have the final surgery in 6 months. I meant to be open before then, but I was terrified of losing you." He rose sharply, face hard as stone. "All this time? 2 years? You kept this from me?" "I didn't hide who I am," she cried, tears streaking down her cheeks. "I loved you with every breath. This is real." "Real?" His voice thundered. "What's real, Naomi, or whatever your name is?" "Naomi," she whispered, her chest heaving. "That's my real name, the only one I've ever claimed inside." Calvin raked his hand through his hair, pacing. "My parents, what will they say? The whole city will laugh at me." "Calvin, please," Naomi begged. "Think of us. This doesn't erase our love." "Love?" He whirled on her. "Do you call this love? To trick me? To humiliate me like this? I don't even know who you are." Their voices rose until they echoed down the suite's walls. In the next room, an older couple stirred awake from the commotion. "Should we call the desk?" the wife whispered. "It's probably just the honeymooners," the husband muttered. "First night quarrel. They'll make up by morning." Across the hall, a young woman tugged off her headphones and frowned at the muffled sounds next door. She heard a man's voice shouting, "You ruined my life!" Then the crash of shattering glass. The next morning dawned bright and cloudless. A maid, Rosa Delgado, knocked softly at the suite door. "Housekeeping?" she called. No answer. She knocked again, louder. Silence. Knowing the couple was due to check out at 11 and the hour had already passed, she slid her keycard and stepped inside. "Excuse me, Mr. and Mrs. Brooks." Her words choked in her throat. In the center of the lavish room, sprawled across the pale carpet, lay Naomi in her torn wedding dress, a dark pool spreading beneath her head, a pistol resting nearby. Through the half-open bathroom door, Rosa glimpsed Calvin seated on the edge of the marble tub, head bowed. Rosa screamed, dropping her keys, fumbling with trembling fingers to dial 911. "Police!" she gasped. Magnolia Grand Hotel, Suite 402. I think there's been a murder. Detective Caroline Hayes pulled her car up to the Grand Hotel entrance, where yellow tape already cordoned off the doors and a curious crowd had gathered. Flipping out her badge, she showed it to the officer posted outside. Detective Hayes, homicide. What do we have? Newlywed, gunshot to the head, the officer reported grimly. Husband's in the bathroom. Looks like shock. Presidential suite, 402. Hayes gave a curt nod and entered the elevator. She had seen her share of killings in her 20 years on the force, but a bride murdered on her wedding night was new even for her. On the second floor, the hallway outside the suite was alive with activity. Forensic techs in white coveralls sifted for evidence, a photographer snapped frames, and the medical examiner knelt over the body. Dr. Lynn, Hayes greeted. What are we looking at? Dr. Lynn straightened. Single shot to the temple, right side. Time of death between 2 and 4 a.m. We'll know more after the autopsy. Hayes crouched beside Naomi's body, taking in the sight of the broken young bride, a thin gold chain with a small dove pendant glinting at her throat. Weapon? She asked. Glock 9mm, one of the techs replied, holding up an evidence bag. Prints matched the husband, Calvin Brooks. Where is he now? Next room, with Officer Torres. Hasn't spoken a word. Shock, most likely. Hayes's eyes swept the room, shattered glass across the floor, an overturned table, objects scattered as if from a violent struggle. Check the security cameras, she ordered. I want to know every soul who went in or out last night. Calvin Brooks sat on the edge of the hotel bed in the adjoining room, staring blankly at nothing. His white shirt was smeared with blood, his hair unkempt. When Detective Hayes entered, he didn't even glance up. Mr. Brooks, she said gently. I'm Detective Caroline Hayes. I need to ask you about what happened last night. Calvin slowly turned his gaze toward her, his eyes hollow. She's gone, he whispered. Naomi's gone. Yes, Mr. Brooks. I need your help to understand what happened. He swallowed hard, rubbing his face with trembling hands. We argued, he began hoarsely. A bad fight. About what? Hayes pressed softly. Calvin's expression twisted with helplessness. She told me something I never knew, something about herself. And what was that? He shook his head, his eyes glassing with tears. I can't. It's too personal. Mr. Brooks, your wife is dead. Your prints were on the weapon. There is nothing more personal than this. Hayes's voice grew firm. What did she say? Silence hung before Calvin whispered, barely audible. She used to be a man. Hayes hid her reaction. She was transgender? Calvin nodded, covering his face. And she hadn't finished the surgery. I found out when He stopped, unable to continue. I was shocked. We shouted. I said awful things. Then I went into the bathroom, just to be alone. I heard her crying. Then a gunshot. His voice cracked. I swear I didn't kill her. Is the gun yours? Yes, he admitted. I keep it in my suitcase when I travel, for safety. But I never touched it that night. I don't know how she got it. Did you hear anyone else? Voices? Footsteps? Calvin squinted, trying to recall. I don't know. I was half out of my mind. I took a pill to calm down, maybe even dozed in the bathroom. When I came out, He buried his face in his hands. I just sat there. Then the maid screamed. Hayes asked more, but his account was thin, shaky. His grief felt real, but the gaps troubled her. Back in the suite, Hayes turned to forensics. What about the weapon? Glock 17, registered to Calvin Brooks 2 years ago, a tech answered. One shot fired. Prints are mostly his, a few smudges likely the victim's. No gunpowder residue on his hands, though he could have washed. Suicide doesn't fit. The bullet's angle is wrong, and there are bruises on the wrists and throat. Hayes' jaw tightened. Check. Everything. Purse, suitcase, all of it.
If you're enjoying this video, kindly do us a favor and subscribe to our channel. Share and like this video. It's free and won't cost anything, but it helps and encourages us to grow and do more. Thank you for your kindness, and back to the video.
Among Naomi's belongings, she discovered a vial of hormone medication, verifying Calvin's story. "Pull the guest list from the wedding," she ordered. "I want close friends first." Interviews followed. An older couple in the room next door confirmed they'd heard raised voices around midnight. "At first, we thought it was just a lover's quarrel," the wife said, "but then it got ugly." He was furious. "Did you hear a shot?" Hayes asked. "No," the husband replied. After the yelling stopped, it went quiet. "We figured they made up." A young woman across the hall told a different piece. "I heard him yell, 'You ruined my life.' Then glass broke. It went silent. But later, maybe an hour after, I heard a door slam. Someone left their room." "What time?" "About 2 a.m. I was getting ready for bed." Hayes jotted it down. If someone entered or left that room, the picture was shifting. Hours later, Naomi's friend Tasha Green arrived, pale and trembling. "I can't believe it," she kept repeating in the hotel lobby. "Just yesterday we were dancing together." "Miss Green," Detective Hayes said calmly. "Were you close to her?" "For 5 years," Tasha sniffled. "I was with her through everything." "So you knew about her transition?" Tasha nodded. "From the start. She was terrified of people finding out, especially Calvin." "Did you urge her to tell him?" "Of course. At the wedding, I begged her. But she was terrified of losing him. If she'd listened, maybe she'd be alive." "What about Calvin? Do you think him capable of murder?" Tasha hesitated. "He loved her, I think. But his family, very traditional. I feared that if he ever learned, he'd never accept her." "Who else knew?" "Not many. Her doctor. Her parents, though they hadn't spoken much." Tasha faltered. "And Deshawn?" Hayes's eyes narrowed. "Deshawn Miller? Calvin's best friend?" "Yes. He found out by accident a year ago. He promised to keep it quiet. But I never trusted him. The way he looked at her, it wasn't right. Almost like he was in love." "Interesting," Hayes thought. "Where was he the night of the murder?" Later that afternoon, Hayes examined Naomi's paper journal found in her suitcase. Written in delicate, looping handwriting, the entries revealed a private torment. "Calvin proposed today," one page read. "I'm the happiest woman alive and the most afraid. How do I tell him? Each day I wait, it gets harder. Veronica, Tasha, says I must tell him before the wedding. She's right, but I'm terrified he'll leave. What if he looks at me with disgust? I couldn't survive that. Maybe after surgery it'll be easier. But is it selfish to bind him in marriage without full truth? I hate myself for this, but I fear losing him more." In later entries, a new worry appeared. "Deshawn was strange today. Said he couldn't keep my secret from Calvin anymore, that it wasn't fair. I begged him for time. He agreed, but his eyes looked different, blaming, pitying." The final entry chilled Hayes. "Tomorrow I'll be Mrs. Brooks. Sounds like a dream. But one confession stands between me and happiness. I'll tell him tonight. If he truly loves me, he'll understand. If not, God, I'm so afraid." Hayes closed the journal slowly. Naomi's words carried the weight of dread. Her greatest fear had come to pass. Hayes reached out to Naomi's hometown police for background. Before her transition, she'd been registered as Aaron Fields. No record, no arrests. Worked as a designer just as she did now. 5 years ago, she changed her legal name and gender. Everything by the book. Parents disapproved, but no formal disputes. Photographs confirmed it. A slender young man with soft features and sad eyes, compared with a radiant, fulfilled Naomi. She'd found herself at last. Hayes studied the images thoughtfully. Then her phone buzzed. "Detective Hayes?" the desk sergeant said. "A man named Deshawn Miller is here. Says he has urgent information." In the interrogation room, Deshawn's hands shook as he twisted the edge of his jacket. His eyes were ringed with exhaustion. "Thank you for coming, Mr. Miller," Hayes began. "You said you had information on Naomi Brooks's death." "I should have come sooner," he blurted. "But I couldn't believe it. Couldn't accept it. What exactly happened?" "Calvin called me last night," Deshawn said, voice breaking. "He was raging. shouting that Naomi had deceived him, that she wasn't who she claimed. He mentioned her being transgender? Hayes asked evenly. Deshawn blinked. You already know? Yes. Go on. He said his life was ruined, that people would laugh, that his parents would die of shame. I'd never heard him like that. Did he threaten Naomi? Deshawn's eyes fell. He said he'd rather she were dead than keep dishonoring him. Hayes studied his face. Then what did you say? I tried to calm him. I told him I'd come over, that we'd talk. But he hung up. Did you go to him? No. And I'll never forgive myself. If I had, maybe she'd still be alive. Mr. Miller, did you know about Naomi's past before that call? He hesitated. Yes. I found out a year ago. She begged me not to tell Calvin. Said she would when she was ready. And you agreed? Yes. Even though I felt like I was betraying my best friend. But I couldn't. He stopped, voice low. Couldn't what? Hayes pressed. Couldn't hurt her. Naomi was special. Hayes's gaze sharpened. Were you in love with her? Deshawn winced. After a pause, he nodded. From the first day. But she only loved Calvin. Always him. Where were you last night between midnight and 4? At my apartment. Alone. He frowned suddenly. Wait, you think I did this? We check everyone, Hayes said. Can anyone confirm your whereabouts? No. But check my phone's location. I didn't leave. Hayes nodded, noting it. One more thing, Deshawn added, rubbing his temple. Calvin kept a gun in his suitcase. He showed me once. Always traveled with it. Hayes closed her notebook. Thank you, Mr. Miller. We'll be in touch. When he left, she stared at the door long after. So many layers. And beneath each, another secret. The following morning, Detective Hayes sat in her office, case files spread before her. Naomi Brooks's death looked like a clear-cut hate crime by a furious spouse, yet something in her gut said otherwise. Her phone rang. Detective Hayes? Officer Daniels here. Calvin's parents are in town, staying at the Meridian Hotel. They're demanding to see him. Hayes exhaled. I'll handle it. Victor and Lorna Brooks looked like they had stepped out of a glossy magazine spread. Perfect hair, impeccable clothes, polished composure. Only their eyes betrayed unease. We need to see our son, Victor declared as Hayes entered their suite. Mr. Brooks is under investigation for his wife's murder, Hayes replied evenly. He'll be available only after arraignment. There must be some mistake, Lorna cut in, clutching a silk handkerchief. Michael would never... Our son is incapable of such violence. Did you know Naomi? Hayes asked. The couple traded wary glances. Of course, Victor said. She was his wife. And what did you think of her? Again, hesitation. Lorna forced a smile. She was charming, cultured. Not our usual circle, but Calvin was stubborn. Did you know about her past? Hayes asked flatly. Victor's expression froze. What past? About Naomi being transgender. Born Aaron Fields. The silence thickened. Lorna went pale, her hand trembling to her lips. Victor sank into a chair. That's impossible. We have medical proof, Hayes said evenly. Your son learned the truth on his wedding night. Hours later, Naomi was dead. Lorna made a strangled sob. The press, the scandal. Quiet, Victor snapped, then glared at Hayes. Someone tricked him, framed him. Our son would never marry such a person. You believe he's innocent? Of course. He may have lost his head, but murder? No. Victor leaned closer. Look, detective, we can resolve this quietly. The Brooks family has resources. What do you want? Promotion? Money? A favor? Hayes stood. I want justice, Mr. Brooks. Unless you have useful information, this meeting is over. At the door, she turned once more. Where were you last night between midnight and 4? Lorna looked at her husband fearfully. At home in Charleston, Victor replied smoothly. Our staff will confirm. Hayes nodded curtly. Thank you. Outside, she drew a long breath. They had every reason to want Naomi gone. But could they have arranged it from afar? Back at headquarters, Hayes reviewed updates. Security footage confirmed Calvin had stayed in his room. Deshawn's phone pinged from his apartment. Tasha's neighbors saw her at home that night. Yet the hotel's surveillance revealed something new. A figure in dark clothes and a cap, face hidden, entering the presidential suite hallway at 1:37 a.m., leaving 10 minutes later. Male, average build. Could be anyone, employee, guest, or killer. Hayes called the manager. Send me every camera feed from last night, especially the garage. Minutes later, Officer Torres placed a clipboard before her. Found something. Parking lot camera, 2 a.m. The same figure heading to a car. For a moment, his face turned toward the light. Stop, Hayes ordered. Zoom in. The blurred face resolved just enough. Send this frame for enhancement. Run the plates. I think we have our man. She turned back to the ballistics report. The bullet's path told another story. The shot came from the side, slightly above, neither self-inflicted nor a frontal shot from Calvin's height. Someone else had pulled the trigger. That evening, Hayes gathered everyone in a conference room. Calvin sat beside his lawyer, pale. Deshawn fidgeted, fingers drumming. Tasha looked drained. Victor and Lorna loomed in the corner, stone-faced. Thank you all for coming, Hayes began. Over the last 2 days, we've uncovered enough to press charges. The facts: Naomi Brooks was shot with a Glock belonging to her husband. Prints matched Calvin's, but signs of a violent struggle point to more. Neighbors heard arguments. Witnesses heard glass breaking. But the ballistics show the shot could not have been suicide, nor fired by Calvin from his position. Surveillance captured a man entering the suite around 1:37 and leaving shortly after. Later, the same man was filmed in the garage. That man, Hayes turned her gaze to Deshawn, was you. Deshawn blanched. That's a lie. I was home. Your personal phone was, Hayes agreed. But you left your work phone behind. And you failed to mention the threatening messages Naomi received in the weeks before her wedding. Blackmail. Demanding money to keep her past a secret. That's not true, he shouted. It is. The IP traces back to your computer, Hayes said coldly. And street cameras show you leaving your apartment at 12:45, returning at 2:30. Enough time to drive here, kill her, and return. We also found powder residue in your car and gloves with her blood. Deshawn's face twisted. That's impossible. Hayes slid a photo across the table, the enhanced frame from the garage camera. That's you, Mr. Miller. Silence fell heavy. Deshawn stared, horror etched across his face. I don't understand, he muttered. Let me explain, Hayes said. You were in love with Naomi from the start. When you discovered her truth, you thought it gave you power, to protect her, to sway her. But she still chose Calvin. You tried to scare her, maybe extort her, hoping she'd break it off. When Calvin called you in fury, saying he wished she were dead, you seized the chance. If you couldn't have her, and Calvin had turned away, you'd end it, and frame him in the process. That's not true, Deshawn whispered. I loved her. So much that you'd rather see her dead than with another, Hayes snapped. You came knowing Calvin was broken, sedated. You knew about his gun. You shot her, leaving evidence to point to him. Deshawn's shoulders slumped. His voice broke. I just wanted her to listen. I brought the gun to scare her. She laughed, said she'd never love me, not even if Calvin left her. And then it just went off. Officer Torres stepped forward. Deshawn Miller, you're under arrest for the murder of Naomi Brooks. He recited the rites as Deshawn sat hollow-eyed, hands trembling. 3 days later, a modest service was held. Only a handful of friends stood by Naomi's grave, Tasha sobbing beside the casket. Calvin did not attend. Detective Hayes lingered afterward beneath the swaying oaks. She thought of the faces behind the case, Deshawn, whose love was poisoned with obsession. Calvin, too bound by pride and family to see the truth. Naomi, who had worn her brightest smile over her deepest fear. Masks, Hayes thought. We all wear them, showing the world only what it wants to see. But sometimes the cost of those masks is too great. Her phone buzzed. Another call. Another case. Another set of masks to tear away. She drew a steadying breath and walked back toward her car. The job never ended. The dead could not be saved, only the living, still clinging to their illusions. Don't forget to subscribe to True Crimes Altar for more haunting stories told in full. And let us know in the comments where in the world you are watching from. We would love to hear your voice among this community.